Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Bree Buonomo. Hi if you're new here, or hey if you've been here before. Today we are going to talk about my November reading recap, which is pretty sparse. As you guys know, if you've been following my channel, I did NaNoWriMo in November and I pretty much dedicated the majority of my time to writing. So there was not a lot of reading to be had. Though I will say I did get some reading done, but I started a few books and just didn't get a chance to finish them during the month. So I'm not going to dilly-dally. We are just going to jump right into my reading wrap-up. The first book of the month that I finished was The Murders of Molly Southbourne by Tade Thompson. This is a novella, and I believe it's only just about 100 some pages, like very, very low, almost 100. And it's a very quick read, but it's done in a very poignant and like sharp way about it. I really, really liked this book. The Murders of Molly Southbourne basically follows a girl named Molly Southbourne, and you're following her for her entire life. Molly grows up on a farm with her father, who was kind of born and raised in the area, and her mother, who has a very secretive past. And that past is slowly revealed a little bit, not fully, but a little bit throughout the novella. But Molly has a very unique condition in that anytime she bleeds, and that's literally any time, whether she gets punched in the nose, she falls and scrapes her knee, she has her time of the month, anytime she bleeds, another Molly is formed from her. And those Mollys are trying to kill her. And that's pretty much the premise of the book. I don't want to really give any more details because it is a very short book and you kind of want that element of intrigue if you want to go into the book. So anyway, I really, really loved this. I ended up giving it a 4-star rating. While I did like it, and honestly there isn't much to really nitpick at, I almost just wanted a little bit more, which is kind of true of the novella, but at the same time, I felt like it was sufficient. But the reason that I think that I wanted more is because I didn't realize that there was another book too. And I think it's just a duology where there's 2 novellas. I could be wrong. However, I found out after the fact of reading it that there was a second book, and I didn't know that. So while it actually probably could be a standalone, it's pretty good by itself. There's a second book if you want, and I think that my feelings of, oh, maybe it's just too short, they might actually dissipate a little bit just because there's a second book out. So I don't really know why I gave it a 4-star. I thought the writing was interesting. It wasn't flowery. It wasn't overly complicated. It was pretty much straight into the point. But for the tale, it worked really well. So I have really no complaints about the writing. I also just don't think I have any complaints about the story itself. It was fascinating, it was fast-paced, and I really liked how, despite it being so short, Molly's interactions with other people were very much affected by the fact that she's always lived her life with this giant secret. So it was just a really interesting book. I gave it 4 stars. Honestly, it probably could be a 5-star book. I don't really remember why I gave it that rating, but ratings, I mean, for the most part, it doesn't really matter anyway. So yeah, I definitely recommend this. I picked this book up because of Halloween, and I wanted to try to read a lot of Halloween reads during the month of October. However, I started this, I think it was on the 29th, and I could have probably read it in a day. It wouldn't have taken that long. I just had so much going on the weekend, especially starting NaNoWriMo, that I didn't end up finishing it for a couple days into November. But it's a solid read. If you need something quick and you want to get into that vibe of just like this weird, twisted sci-fi fantasy type of story, I would give it a go. On that note, the second and final book that I actually completed during the month of November is Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. This book follows a boy named Christopher and his mother, Kate, who, after the death of Christopher's father from a very traumatic incident, and after Kate leaves in a possibly abusive relationship with a man named Jerry, they flee to this small Pennsylvania town a little bit outside of Pittsburgh and try to recreate a new life there. But shortly after arriving at this small town, Christopher goes missing for 6 days. And when he returns, he is one of the smartest kids in the school, and he seems to have some weird powers that no one believes he actually has, but Christopher knows things that he shouldn't. He can hear people's thoughts. He can make things happen, and he starts to say that there is an imaginary world that only he can access through a treehouse in the woods. With that being said, there's a bunch of different things that happen, how that there you follow different points of views, and it's following different people from the town and how they're experiencing these weird things that Christopher are talking about, and how his powers start to grow, and you're wondering if there is powers or if he is following in his father's mental health footsteps. So there's a lot of like that intrigue. And I ended up reading this. This is one of the big books that I wanted to get to this year. It's almost 700 pages, or it's just over 700 pages. And I decided that it was my last month for my last job where I was driving heavily, and I wanted to tackle this in an audiobook format because I got a sale. So now I have the audiobook and the physical book. And unfortunately, I was very disappointed in the book. I gave it a 3 stars on Goodreads, but honestly, I'm still debating. I still don't know if it's a 3-star or it's a 2-star or it's a 2.5. I'm not sure, because there was just a lot of things that this book started off going and having so strong, and then by the time I got through like halfway through the book, I was annoyed, and I kind of had a feeling of where it was gonna go, and then I was right, and I hated every second of it. So what are the pros of this book? I'll go with that kind of mentality. So the pros of this book are that I personally just really like Stephen Chbosky's writing. The Perks of Being a Wallflower is one of my favorite books of all time, and I've heard criticisms and praise for his writing in this type of style, because this is a horror book. So some people argue that his writing style, that simplicity and just straight in your face bluntness, doesn't work for this. For me, I connected with it just fine. I had no problem with it. I thought it worked for the most part for this story. And I really, for the first like 200 to 300 pages of this book, I was just so invested. Like because I knew it was such a big book, I was really wanting to learn, like, how does everything connect? How are these people, like, you know, is this real? Like, it definitely seems real, but then at the same time, like, nothing is tangible at this point. So it was so interesting. It just kept me going and going. And I ended up like reading this book after my drives as well, like when I was around the house or just sitting down or whatever. I was really invested in the beginning. However, the downside of this, and this could be a potential spoiler, so I will try to leave a spoiler warning on the screen for you guys if this is something that you don't want to know, because it does pertain to the second half of the book. Then, you know, after the spoiler warning, come back. But the problem that I had with this book is that in the second half, and it was slowly hinted at in the beginning of the book, but there is one character in this book who is particularly religious, and there's a very like heavy debate with her about like being so religious to the T that it negatively impacts your life, and how to cope with that if you start having your own mental health because of it. And I liked that aspect. However, with that character's introduction, I felt that a lot of things, it was pretty immediate for me, that a lot of things that was starting to go on, I was thinking that this was going to take on a religious tone completely. And I was right. And I just felt disappointed in that. Because I don't have anything wrong with religion, and I think if in religion done well in a book can be absolutely fine. But what I did not anticipate this book to be a literal story about good versus evil. Because that at the core of this book, that is what this book is about. And at the end, it goes on like an entire rampage, essentially about, you know, why we should stay true to God and how to overcome evil, and, you know, that we don't want to make deals with the devil. That was the back end of this book, and while I thought that it might be going in that direction, I was really frustrated that it did, because I liked the setup, and I just felt it went from something that could have been so good and interesting to what I felt like was a cop-out at the end of just, well, the moral of the story is good versus evil, kids. Choose the side of good. So, yeah, I just really got bummed about that fact. And overall, because of how the story turned out, I just really didn't like it in the end, and I'm very, very sad. This year, I really wanted to read more horror, and I wanted to read bigger books, and this was the perfect combination. And sadly, it just did not pan out. So I honestly don't know what I want to do. I do own the audiobook now. It is in my library forever, and I might literally just unhaul this, even though it sucks because I bought it. It's brand new. It's a nice book, but I don't think I'm ever going to physically read it because I hate the ending so much. So really, that is my wrap up for the month of November. I just read those 2 books, and we had 2 very different sides of the coin. However, during the month, I also picked up a few other things. I started to read A Phoenix First Must Burn, which is edited by, I think it's Patrice Caldwell. But that is all about Black girl magic and struggles with being Black, and I wanted to give that a shot. I do like some of the authors that are in that compilation, and I'm also going to be exposed to new authors. So I am listening to that on audiobook. I've only listened to the first 2 stories, and overall, like, nothing crazy thoughts. They're good. I just have a hard time connecting with short stories in an anthology. Like, I can read one-off short stories, but for whatever reason, when they're in an anthology, I really have to, like, reading or apparently also listening to them. I just have to kind of make sure that I understand that this is one full story, so I have to pay attention because it's going to end. And that's where my struggle is, why I haven't really been listening to it as much. But it's good with the 2 or 3 stories that I've listened to so far, and I will finish it by the end of the year. The second book that I picked up, which as of the last day of November, I was over 200 pages, like over 250, so I was halfway through the book by the time November ended. But that was A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik, and personally, I'm absolutely obsessed with this book. I think it is so good, it is so intriguing, and I'm so excited to talk about it. So I'm almost done with that as of the day I'm filming this video. I think I have maybe 100 pages. I don't even think I have that many, and I really wanted to finish it last night, but I ended up getting distracted. So I'm excited to talk about those, but those are the 2 books that I'm in the middle of, and who knows, I have an entire list for December that I'm definitely not going to get to, but it's there, and hopefully we will see how the month goes. So anyway, guys, that is my monthly wrap-up. Let me know if you read any books in the month of November. What did you read? What were your favorites? What were your least favorites? And overall, just give me some of your thoughts. If you've read the books that I read this month, what did you think of them as well? And until next time, I will see you then. Bye.